Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Steel and Whiskey. I'm Caitlin Metcalf, the Engineering Product Manager here at SDS2 by Allplan. And I'm really excited to have this episode, be able to host this episode with you today with our wonderful guest, Chloe Osorio, otherwise known as Chloe the Engineer, which we're happy to have with us, especially with the upcoming Women in Construction Week. So I'm excited to get to know you better and chat a little bit more about your experience in the field and how we can all support one another a lot more. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. So I have your background, but I'm going to let you speak to that a little bit. Let's go ahead and get started. And can you just tell me a little bit more about yourself? Who are you and what do you do? What's your background?
Sure. So again, my name is Chloe Osorio, and I am a civil engineer, and I work in the power industry. So I work in civil engineering design as well as construction for all kinds of projects, from transmission to generation to distribution. And of course, renewable energy projects are a big part of my work right now. So I got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and then while I was working, I went back to school and got a master's in engineering management from USC. So a little bit of different major there for the master's, but
Great.
it gave me a lot of insight into the construction business and more of the, business side of engineering. So that was really cool. And I also work in social media. So like you said, I run a page called Chloe the Engineer. Started that page to kind of break the stereotypes of women in STEM and construction. So I share a lot of my day-to-day life and what engineering is, and try to break some of those stereotypes of what it looks like to be a woman in that industry.
For sure. Yeah, we're not all just pink hard hat and pink boots, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great. How did you find yourself in this career path? Is it something you always wanted to do? Were you very interested in building as a kid, or how did you get here?
So I was really interested in like buildings as a kid. My father is a civil engineer, but he's more in the environmental sector,
Okay.
actually getting ready to retire very soon.
Nice.
And so I learned a little bit about engineering from him. And then from a young kid, I liked like playing with blocks and Legos. I had an older brother who had all those toys. So I really got into it. And then in high school, I was a part of an architecture program. So I was really lucky that my school had an architecture elective. So for 4 years, I learned to hand draft. I learned CAD softwares.
Cool.
I learned a lot, and I fully thought I just wanted to go to architecture school and be an architect. And then a guidance counselor kind of walked me through. And of course, my dad had told me all of this, but we don't always listen straight away to mom and dad. But the guidance counselor kind of told me, you love math and science and physics as well, because I was in AP physics. Yeah. And I think your love of architecture and buildings with that as well could really roll you well into a civil engineering career. And I guess I just thought of environmental engineering as civil engineering because that's what I grew up with and knew. Right. And so she kind of was like, no, there's even architectural engineering, which is like another subsector. And so I listened to her for some reason. And so I decided to become a civil engineering major rather than architecture, and never looked back after that.
Yeah, now knowing what you know today, what do you think about that? Is it like, yes, I'm so glad that I was pointing in that direction. Yes, this is the right path for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still love architecture, and I still dabble in some sort of like architectural design through some like side work that I do with real estate and stuff with my husband. So I still get that little passion, but I'm very happy I chose to do civil engineering as my main gig.
Yeah. I was the same way getting started. I had really no idea how large the field of civil engineering was and how many different opportunities were within civil engineering. And now, even to this day, like just trying to explain to people what I do. And yes, I'm technically a civil engineer, but like, what does that really mean? What do I really do on a day-to-day basis is a different story.
Of course. Yeah.
Speaking of that, what is a typical day for you? What does a day of work look like for you?
So I work in, like I said, the power industry. And what I love about my job is that it's never monotonous. It's never the same thing every day. I'm very lucky to work in both design and construction. So a previous job I had, it was fully like design and consulting. I would go to the field to check on things, yes, but like didn't really get to see A to Z. Now I do the design as well as, CM and going out to the field all the time to make sure everything's going well. And that I really like, because I kind of like, my favorite thing of engineering is to be able to point at something and say like I had something to do with that.
For sure.
But if you don't get to see the process of it being built, it's not as exciting.
Right.
And I think it's really cool that one helps you with the other, right? So if you're just a designer and you're designing things, yes, it might work on paper, but I think that's where the contractor engineer, memes come from. It's very easy to just design something and not think about how it's going to be built. So really watching A to Z of that construction makes my designs better in the long run, because I can see those problems that arise in the field and hopefully not make the same mistake in the next design. And vice versa, because I think people who are only in construction and don't see what goes into designing, it's easy to talk a little crap to them, and think they don't know what they're doing. But there's a lot that goes into the design that, is not as so. One really does help with the other. So I like being able to be in both and hopefully improve the other aspect of my career with each project.
I love it. I love it, because that's exactly my experience too. And especially now working at the detailer and the fabrication level here at SDS2, and getting to know like the troubles that they have and their common day-to-day pain points. It's exactly what you just said. They have to deal with these focus problems, but the problems and the griping and the difficulties go all the way up and down the design team. And it's so true. I think it's so fascinating. The more we can learn about each other's needs and each other's processes, really it can only help all of us together, because we are supposed to be working as a team, but a lot of times we feel like we're out on an island on our own. So I love that. I want the industry to go that way.
Of course, yes.
Awesome. So what do you like most about your job? You had mentioned being out on the job site and seeing all that. Is there anything about the social media aspect that really ties into your day-to-day work and that you really appreciate and feeds your career drive?
Yeah, definitely. So I started social media. So I'm a millennial. I grew up in social media, and growing up, like high school, college was when I guess Instagram really started coming out, and I loved following all kinds of like content creators, mostly like fashion and lifestyle content creators, because I'm a girl and I liked watching that. But as I got older, I kind of thought, where's all the women who like work 9-to-5 jobs? Because a lot of these creators, they get to do creation full time. Like, where's the 9-to-5 jobs? Where's the STEM women? I want to see some engineers. So that's kind of why I started creating content, to kind of show like I love fashion and lifestyle and coffee and my fluffy dog. Yeah. But I'm also, an engineer and love doing that as well. So I kind of started years ago doing that. And I just started showing what engineering was like, some of the pain points of engineering. But to this day, my biggest thing is to show that I feel like growing up, sometimes you think to be an engineer, any big career, lawyer, doctor, that has to be your whole life. And if you're not giving 24/7, 365, 100% brain power to being that, you're not going to be successful. So my biggest thing is to show I love traveling with my husband. I love playing with my dog. I love buying pink blazers. I love all these different things. And I'm still being successful as a civil engineer and in construction. So my favorite thing is, I used to love, well, I still to this day love going into schools, talking about engineering, showing kids they can be an engineer too. But there's only so many kids you can reach doing that physically. And that's why I turned to social media, because I'm like, every kid's on social media these days, from like a scary age nowadays. I can reach so many across the world, places I could never get to on my own through social media. And my favorite part is just getting messages from high school girls, college girls, even young professionals saying like, this resonated with me. This makes me believe that I can do this too. That's obviously the best part.
Do you hear from people from all over the world? Do you hear feedback from everyone everywhere? That's so cool.
I do, especially like girls who they've never seen a female engineer. Like, I take it very for granted in Los Angeles. There's the numbers are getting better. You see a lot of women in these careers, but there's definitely parts of the world and the country, even the country, that don't have as good of representation yet. So some girls in high school or college that said, I didn't know I could do this major because I've never seen a female in construction, or I've never seen a female in engineering. That's where it really makes it worth it.
Totally. How inspiring. That's really cool. I love hearing that. Who are some of your role models? I know you're obviously a role model to many of these women out there, but who are your role models? Who inspires you?
So my number one role models are my mom and dad. They've always been my cheerleaders from day one. So my dad, came to this country from the Middle East, jumped into civil engineering, didn't even know English. Now, how the heck I got through a civil engineering degree is beyond me, but how a man with like learning English at the same time got through the degree is totally inspirational. So he was obviously my inspiration. And then my mom was like the number one person who showed me like being a girl did not stop me from doing anything. My number one story that still stays with me to this day, and someone recently asked me how old I was, and I asked my mom and she didn't really remember either, but I was very young, maybe 7-8 years old when I first wanted to start playing basketball, because my brother, who's 5.5 years older than me, he was playing basketball, and I was in dance and ballet and all those things. And I was like, no, I want to play soccer and basketball like my big brother. And at the time, there wasn't really any girls basketball leagues. So the local YMCA, it was, I believe, technically co-ed, or maybe they didn't really say anything because no girls really played. And my mom was like, well, if you want to play, then you play at the local Y with all the boys. And she told me, you're not a girl basketball player. You're just a basketball player. You can go out there and play the same way as all your teammates and everyone else. And that just stuck with me through my whole life. No matter what I was trying or what I was doing, if it was all the men, I could get out there and do it. And her favorite story to tell is that when I first came to the first practice, all the dads were like, oh, we have a girl on our team. And by the end of the season, I guess one of the meanest dads, he was yelling at his son and saying, why can't you be more like Chloe?
That's right. She's brave. She showed up, obviously.
And my mom just, to this day, that was probably 20 plus years ago. And she still to this day loves that story because it just showed, you can go out there and it doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, what gender, you can do the best job like anyone else.
Right. Just show up and do the work. Absolutely. That's awesome. I love it. Do you still play basketball today?
For fun. I stuck with soccer, so I ended up playing soccer in college. So I got a college scholarship to play soccer, which allowed me to study civil engineering. So, but I still love basketball.
Wow, I always am blown away and impressed by people who played sports and studied engineering in college too. That in itself is a great experience and a lot of work.
Yeah, it was definitely tough, but it was fun.
Very cool. All right, so we've bounced around on all the happy, good things and tons of inspiration, no doubt. But like anybody in any career, male or female, what are, there's always down days as well. What are some of the difficulties that you've encountered getting into the industry or breaking into the trade? Have you ever had, a similar issue with like the dad kind of groaning when you walk into an office?
Of course. So very early in my career, this is one of the experiences that kind of stuck with me. I really love dressing up. I love wearing pink. I love heels. I just, when I first broke into the industry, I kind of thought like, oh, consulting and, everyone dresses really nicely. And I'm going to buy business clothes and all that. So very early on, I was wearing like, I don't know, probably a dress or a blouse and skirt and heels. And my boss came to my cubicle and he looked at me and then said, "Oh, never mind," and walked away. And I was like, wait, whoa.
Ouch.
Like, fish back, come back,
Yeah.
sir. I was like, what were you going to say? And he's like, well, I wanted to take you to the field and take you to a construction site, but like, obviously you can't go today.
Right.
And I kind of looked at him and I was like, well, I have jeans and steel toes like in my drawer. I just have to change real quick. And he's like, wait, really? I was like, yes. Like, I started a civil engineering job thinking I would never go to a construction site. Yes,
Right.
that's definitely what happened. And so from then on, like, obviously he didn't mean anything totally malicious by it. He's used to really any business clothes he wore, he could throw on boots and be good to go. Whereas a dress and a skirt, you're not really good to go, right? So that changed his perspective. Like, oh, Chloe's prepared. She's ready to go. Even if she's looking all girly and feminine, she can snap into construction mode real quick. So that was one of the really early on experiences that shifted my mindset to, you hear all these horror stories about women in STEM and construction. And of course, there's people out there that are malicious, right?
Sure.
But for the most part, in my experience, it's just lack of knowledge, and you just have to kind of educate and be like, you're not used to having someone like me around, but I'm going to show you what it's like. So that really molded how I approach situations throughout my whole career. Is don't go straight in thinking it's malicious or thinking it's on purpose. Just let them know why it might have been hurtful or why it's not true, and move forward accordingly.
Totally. Yeah, I know. I don't think I've ever witnessed anything that felt truly malicious. It was just confusion a lot of times, and and just it's a different situation than what you're used to seeing 99% of the time. So, give me 5 minutes, and I'll win you over when I walk onto the construction site.
Yes.
That's awesome. Can you tell me about some of your biggest successes, like work-wise or career-wise, or a project that you specifically loved? What are some of your biggest successes that stand out to you?
So I worked on a big project that's actually like kind of just completed, and I started working on it in like 2019. It was a very, very long project, building a brand new bank and a switching station. So it was a huge project, and going through COVID, all kinds of problems with equipment procurement and all that. So it took a very long time, and there was so many problems along the way and so many obstacles that I had to get through, and obstacles I did not know how to get through.
Yeah.
And as much as it's from the outside looking in, it's kind of a normal engineering project, but that was my first extremely large project from A to Z that I started and completed, and that I kind of did fully on my own. Got my PE in the middle of it. So, I was fully kind of in charge of that project. And that's the project that I like fully credit with showing me that I can do hard things and I can make these decisions and I can solve these problems. And obviously along the way, I've needed other subject matter experts and other help from people with more experience than me, of course, no matter what. But it was the first time that I really was confident in myself. Maybe not at the beginning necessarily, but towards the end,
figure it out. Yeah.
It's now the project I can look back and be like, okay, if I got through that project, if I got through this problem, if they hit this utility and I figured out how to fix it, if they did all these things, I can tackle this project. So as much as it's not a success in the terms of from the outside looking in, it's like this insane project of my career. I'll probably have way bigger projects and way more important projects throughout the years, but it will always be in my mind as that one that showed me to be confident in myself.
Absolutely. Okay, so be perfectly honest. How many times have you taken your parents by that project to show them your work?
Just once actually, and it was just my dad, but it's very far away. So it's not something that's easy to show them. But we recently were in the area and I was like, oh, look that way. That's where the station I worked in was.
Take a picture.
For sure.
Totally. I love those. I feel like I feel like everybody's like that. You have like a selfie with a building randomly somewhere. That means so much more to you than anybody else will ever see.
Yeah, like, what is this picture of? That is mine.
We all feel that way. Yes, because you created it. It was a struggle. I think everybody can resonate with that feeling on any project, size large or small. Nobody knows what's going to happen as you start it. And so getting through it, just getting over all those barriers and figuring things out makes you feel so good.
1,000%.
I love it. So, okay, can you tell me now a little bit more about your viral Stomping Out the Stereotypes campaign? I'd love to hear more about the social media aspect of this.
Yes, of course. That's my claim to fame, is Stomping Out Stereotypes. I love it. That's another baby of mine.
Yeah.
So, and the funny thing is, it all happened by accident. So, I was actually on my way onto like a business trip. I needed to go. I'm in Southern California. I needed to go far up north, like Central California. Had like a 5-hour drive ahead of me. Go through a lot of desolate areas where you don't really have much service on your phone. So I was getting ready to leave, and I had this idea for a picture, and I had my husband take it of me the night before, and he even kind of looked at me like, wait, what do you want me to take a picture of? And I was like, I want you to get down and take a picture. Okay, sure. So he takes the photo, and like the night before I edit it, put like a cool background. It was like pink bricks. So I thought that was really cool because it was like the bricks in construction, but pink. And then my boot and my heel. And I totally just thought, this was before like video was really big in social media. It was only really photos. And I just thought it was like a cool photo to show kind of my message. Like, I can be in heels one time, I can be in the dirt and steel toes, and I can be in both worlds, be both, and I'm good. Totally just thought it was going to be a cool photo. Some people would think it was cool, call it a day. So I posted it right before leaving. I don't even remember what the caption was. Something about like, you don't belong in a box, be both, or something like that.
Yeah.
And went along my way, multiple stops at McDonald's and stuff, no service. Hours later, finally get some service back, and I look at the post and I'm like, wait, whoa, this is way more views I've ever had. And lots of comments of women saying like, this is amazing, I resonate with this is awesome. And then a bunch of women saying, let's make this a challenge. Let's like all do this.
Yeah.
And someone actually came up, people were posting hashtags like ideas for what the challenge should be called. And I don't remember who, unfortunately. I could probably go through all the comments and find it, but someone said Stomping Out Stereotypes. And I clicked it and there was like nothing in the hashtag. So it was kind of a fresh hashtag. And I was like, perfect. So I like pinned a comment saying, okay, this is now a challenge called Stomping Out Stereotypes. And in the next few weeks, hundreds of women from around the world posted their versions, and they weren't all heels and a boot. Some were, I remember, a ballet slipper, like on point with a boot, which was so cool, because how people go on point is beyond
right.
So cool. A lot of people did it with their kids and had like their kids' feet in it. We had roller skates, we had army boots, we had I don't even know, so many different things. And that's what really was really cool about it. It wasn't just resonating the way I did it, it was the message that resonated, and then everyone had their own style of that message, had their own hobbies or their own definitions of what being both or being everything, not being in a box, really meant to them. And that's what was really cool to see, was seeing all the different versions of all different people around the world.
I love it. It's just exactly what you said at the beginning too. Like, we're female engineers. We have we're just people too, right? We all have our own hobbies and interests and likes, and there's a ton of other things that go into that. And we're not just sitting here doing math equations all day long.
Exactly.
Some days we do.
It is true. They're not the most fun days, but sometimes they happen.
We can geek out on you, but yeah, some people are also on point, apparently, and roller skating around, which is very impressive.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I love it. I've seen a few of those. I'll have to like do some more digging and look at some of those pictures because I'd love to just see all of them and just see the comparison of what people are putting out there because that's really impressive.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you got to kind of scroll because the hashtag gets used a lot for just all kinds of breaking stereotypes.
Oh, sure.
Like content now from women in STEM and creators. Yeah. But the original posts are all the photos. Now, there's a lot of reels and stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm sure
it's really worth going to the very beginning, even if it takes some scrolling.
Totally. I definitely will. Do you have any tips for us fellow women in construction? Any advice for us?
So my biggest advice, and I've done a lot of talks on this recently, is just to be your full self and be your authentic self in construction, because I always have these conversations about how these stereotypes still exist because the numbers are getting better, right? And even no matter what gender you identify with, or even the men in our industry, right? They succumb to some stereotypes of what you're supposed to be within construction and engineering. And I think it's just important for anyone and everyone to just bring their full authentic self to the industry, because that's the only way we're going to break these stereotypes. Is if we don't, when we mold ourselves into these stereotypes, that's what keeps them going, because the next generation behind us sees us acting in what that stereotype was teaching them. And they're like, okay, this is true. I do need to be that to be successful. So I just think it's important to be your whole self, be authentic, bring your full personality, bring your background, the way you grew up, because that's how we're going to make better projects, is because different mindsets and different thought processes.
Exactly.
I always say on my page, if we're going to build a world for everyone, then everyone has to help build it. So, just
so perfect.
Be your full self.
Yes. It's so true. I love that so much. And it's so true of everyone, just like you said, not just for women. It's everybody. Bring yourself to the table, be honest about who you are. I see a lot of people these days like getting burnt out from overworking and stress. And I think it's just that message continues there as well. Like, be yourself, be honest about, the things you want to do outside of work and self. Don't just commit yourself to being 100%, at work as an engineer chained to your desk.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice specifically for men of how men might participate or better understand us or be better allies for us in the field?
The biggest thing is just, it's really simple. Just like call out things when you see them. I had a coworker who very early in my career, I was the youngest and only woman in the conference room, and a guy who wasn't even anything to do with me. We didn't work in the same area or anything. He slid a notebook to me and asked me to take notes in the meeting. Mm-hmm. And my coworker, honestly, I hadn't even processed it before he stopped the notebook from sliding and slid it back and said, "She's not your note taker. She's not even like in your group. Why would
I love it.
Notes for you?" And the guy who did it kind of fumbled, like, "Oh crap!" I think he realized what it looked like, and it was very quick, fluid. No one yelled. No one called me the crazy emotional girl. It was just very got the point across. And that guy never did that again. But it might have looked different. Obviously, I would have stood up for myself, but it looks very different coming from another man telling him, "Hey, bro, like, stop." And that it still stuck with me today. And that coworker doesn't even remember. I brought it up to him a couple months ago. Like, "Do you remember that?" And he's like, "Oh, I kind of do remember that. Like, yeah, he was a butthead, But like, to him, it meant nothing. He just did it. But to me, that stuck with me. Like, going to mean a world of difference to your female coworkers.
Absolutely. And I love it. I love how you point out that like they don't even realize they're doing it. I think that that's so much what men are doing these days. They might not even realize how big of an impact they're already having on us and our careers, and doing things like that and making it not a big deal, is so helpful just for everybody to work together, and it squashes it immediately and it makes it a non-issue, and it probably even lessens the burn on the butthead guy and like helps him break out of his stereotype, right? Without causing him a lot of pain or shame or anything, right? Maybe it was just him being in a box that he needed to break out of himself. So
Exactly.
that's great. Let's see. What else do I have for you? Oh, yeah. Why do you think, I know that we're growing, our numbers are definitely growing, women in engineering, but we're still quite low, I think, on the leadership side, at least of what I'm seeing. Why do you think the industry needs to get behind having more women leaders?
So like I just said, like if we're going to build a world for everyone, everyone has to help build it, right? So I have this story that stuck with me. I was on a panel, like doing a panel event with a bunch of different engineers and STEM professionals. And there was a woman there she was an older woman, and she talked about how she was one of the first women to get hired in a local like metro department.
Yeah.
And she had grown up taking the bus with her mom. And she vividly remembered how much her mom always struggled if there was no seats available. She couldn't reach the handles, when you're standing.
Right.
And she kind of realized that they were being designed much higher, like the average height of a man, not the average height of, maybe women.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of women riding the bus at the time, single moms and getting to and from. And so when she joined this metro department, she got to have a hand in the bus designs, and she brought this up and said, I feel like they're being designed too high. And it was changed. And she made that tiny little change that probably people don't even think about. And like she said in the panel, she said, it's not that the men were saying we don't want women to ride the buses and we don't want them to be able to hang on. It was just their mindset was like, okay, like 5'6", 5'7", and not really realizing like, oh, women are average a lot shorter than that. So she was able to bring that knowledge from her background and her experiences and change something for the better. So that's why I think it's important for everyone to be represented and have a stake in the project, have a say at the table, because they're going to bring knowledge and experiences that change a project for the better, depending on where they came from, what they experienced, all those different things. So it's very important to have women, people from all over the world, people from, it's just important to have a wide variety of opinions and backgrounds to be able to create a well-rounded project.
Absolutely. Yeah. As much as we all want to take claim for good ideas, like you rarely even know you have one until, you've run it by a whole team and gotten feedback and everybody rolls it into something better and better. That's fascinating. I love that story. What are your hopes for the future of women in construction?
My hopes are just that women feel fully comfortable going into construction, because that's the biggest thing I get from I get a lot of DMs from young women in college and stuff saying like, I really love construction. Maybe they're in a civil engineering degree and they don't know if they want to go full design or go into kind of contracting and construction. They're like, I really love construction. I'm in AGC or, I do, ASC competition or whatever. And I really, really love it, but I don't see very many girls doing it. And I hear all these horror stories about the second you step on site, everyone's just sexist and everyone's mean to you. And so I just want to break those stereotypes and show women that you're going to be okay. It's a place for you. I always say, I want to show that there's a place for women in STEM and construction, if that's where they want to be. So I feel like sometimes the backlash on a lot of outreach and activities in STEM for girls and stuff is kind of met sometimes with like, you're forcing girls into it. That's not the case here. We don't want to force anyone into anything. We just want to show them that if that's what they want to do, they can do it. Absolutely. So I just hope that we slowly stop seeing as many girls scared to go into those fields, and hopefully all the work we're doing with social media, outreach, competitions, podcasts can help that along.
Absolutely. Education goes a long, long, long way. Yeah, that's wonderful. All right. Do you have any other words of wisdom? I mean, we're getting about to the end of our time here, and it's been awesome. I really thank you for all of your insight. It's great. I will definitely be following you in the future and maybe adding my own feet to your hashtag there.
Yes.
How can people connect with you too in the future, if you don't mind giving us some of your info so people can reach out to you if they want to?
Yeah, of course. So on Instagram, I'm at Chloe the Engineer, and I'm that on TikTok too. So if there's any younger generations listening, I try to keep up with my TikTok, but it's hard for an older millennial to do. I'm fully kind of stuck in Instagram, but I am there as also Chloe the Engineer. And yeah, if you DM me through Instagram or anything, I can connect with however you'd like to connect. But that's probably the best way to get in touch.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. It was been an inspiration to speak with you and a lot of fun. I hope you get many more awesome projects in your future and you can continue to spread this message and share and encourage all people, all the women and men out there in our field to be themselves and bring their good ideas to the table, because I agree with you completely. It's the only way we're going to improve and make all these processes better.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and everyone go out there and be your authentic self.
Love it. Thanks everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.